Here's the question, guys. Where does Michael Chandler go from here? It is not as simple as he goes into a title fight, because then with who? Who is more obvious for a title fight? Who is more obvious? Chandler or Poirier? Okay, Poirier wins. Poirier is more obvious. His next fight's for the title. Any way you want to do it. We take that damn thing off Khabib, which has been obvious for 9, but we finally do what's obvious for 9 weeks. We take the belt off Khabib, or Khabib comes back and fights Poirier if you want to be one of those conspiracy theorists. I don't argue either way, but it's against Poirier. Do you agree? Okay. Yes. The answer is yes. Am I right? Absent of Khabib, where's Chandler go? Because it would appear that Chandler also deserves a title fight. And as recently as a week ago, guys, in fairness, we all said it looks like we've got the final 4. So let's put the winner of the main event against the winner of the co-main event. Sure, we also thought that was going to be Conor. Sure. But the fact that it's not Conor, I don't think equals that we now get to punish the winner of the co-main event. We said a week ago it should be those 2 guys, but it doesn't look like it's going to be. It looks as though Poirier is going to have to choose between Conor, and Poirier gets to choose between Nate Diaz. Poirier offered his own suggestion, of course, which is that Chandler go and fight Oliveira. I'll tell you right now, Chandler's not going to have a problem with that. You guys that don't know who Chandler is, or maybe you don't like Chandler, or maybe now there's your new fans, but the other side of the coin, you're now jealous. This guy comes in, he has a wonderful performance, cuts a great promo, and now I want to hold him down. Okay, here's what you don't know about Michael Chandler. He's a competitor first and foremost. He is not, he's going to try to lobby and position, but he's not going to try and lobby and position beyond one phone call that says we would like you to fight Oliveira. He will say okay, and he will put the phone down. I'm only sharing that with you because Chandler versus Oliveira is very interesting. The problem that we have with making that prediction is a lot of people are saying that Gaethje is going to fight Oliveira, which seemed like the obvious fight because those were the only 2 players left on the board. Now, what if I threw this at you yet another way, which is Chandler versus Gaethje? I mean, do you see where things get pretty cool pretty quick? We don't necessarily have the problems you may think. We've got some really good stuff going on here. By the way, Gaethje, who just has a loss, and you got Hooker, who just has a loss, and I don't believe those 2 have ever matched up. I mean, do you see where all of a sudden 155, there's just no way to do it wrong. There's just ways maybe to do it better. It's a very exciting division. So when you're discussing what comes next for Michael Chandler, hold that. I think that Oliveira is going to be looked at. But then you'll also be able to look at Gaethje. If Chandler goes with Oliveira, what do you do with Gaethje? If Chandler gets over on Gaethje, is that just as meaningful as getting over on Oliveira, even though different styles? Yeah, it probably is. So I think you're good. I think either way you want to do it is good to buy yourself some time. Keep Michael Chandler out there. Buy yourself some time to get this championship resolved, which I would argue for you purely as a fan is priority number 1 within the division. Get a belt around somebody. Those boys who are sacrificing everything with a dream have the right to have a belt to go out and pursue. Okay. What do you do with Dan Hooker? Now, Hooker may or may not have retired. I don't accept the retirement. If we're not going to accept Khabib's retirement, we can't accept Hooker's. But Hooker took his allegedly. I didn't even see this, and I watched the broadcast. People were saying that Hooker left the cage, undid his gloves, and just pitched them into the octagon. I love Dan Hooker. I've always liked Dan Hooker, but never more than right now. If that in any way was his sign of retirement, which is great. You can't have your comeback fight until you retire first. If that was his retirement move, there was a guy that did this in wrestling. Okay. This actually started from wrestling. And the first person to lay their gloves down and walk away was a wrestler. But the wrestler got the move because when you retire in wrestling, you take your shoes off and you leave them in the center of the mat. 3 seconds later, the referee who's trying to start a new match is going to come and pick those up and put them somewhere. And the last thing the ref wants is your dirty, sweaty shit. He'll put them in a garbage can. I mean, they're not like this real significant thing. But that is where that comes from. And there was this wrestler, 1988 Goodwill Games, that was never supposed to be representing the U.S. He got prodded off the bench. He wasn't even the guy. So he was in no level of shape to go out there and face the Canadians, the Cubans, and the Russians. But he went anyway. So he loses all 3 of the matches badly. leaves the mat, and he's sitting in his chair on the side. He can't even move. He's so tired. He just takes his shoe off and he throws it on the mat. And he takes the other and he just throws it on the mat. He's like, I'm done. And nobody argued. He didn't score a single team point for the team. It's like, yeah, you're done. You never even should have been here. But it was so funny, and he was too tired. He was too tired to get up and walk out. And so he just pitches them onto the mat, of which a referee has to then come and clean them up. And the referee doesn't want these things. It reminded me of that when Hooker just pitched his gloves in, man. It was so funny. But I don't accept Hooker's retirement. In fact, not only do I not accept his retirement, whatever is next for Hooker is going to be beautiful. Dan Hooker has not been less than a co-main event since the night Adesanya won the title over Whitaker, to put that in perspective for you. Hooker has not been less than Dan Hooker matters. He absolutely matters. So something cool still down the pike for Hooker. I might have just solved the problem when I said Justin Gaethje. They're both on losses. Sean Shelby likes to get guys together. He likes to get winners together. He likes to get guys that got beat together. I mean, that's a great fight. Oh my God, you'd stop what you're doing. Justin Gaethje versus Dan Hooker. Not to mention Gaethje's dumb enough to go stand with him. By dumb enough, I mean, he's fun enough. He's crazy. He believes in his stand. That's a good fight. That's a really interesting match. I have a different idea. Same idea I always have, by the way. I realize I don't come to you with a lot of... I have a different idea. 170. I got no problem with seeing Dan Hooker against George Masvidal right now. Right now. I don't care that he came... I don't give a damn that he's coming off a loss. I will stop and watch Dan Hooker versus George Masvidal for the BMF title right now. I'm not going to get my way. They're not going to bring him off a loss and put him against George. I'm offering for you a fine example. And Hooker's tall, right? I mean, Hooker's got the frame. Hooker could definitely fill into a 170-pounder. I would be very curious how much Hooker weighs when he's walking around. I know his teammate, Adesanya, does not believe in cutting weight and doesn't do it. But I believe that Hooker does pull. I believe he pulls down to 155. I believe, just looking at his frame and how big and tall he is, I would assume he's a 170 more naturally. I can tell you from firsthand knowledge, when you change weight class, oh boy, you rejuvenate the whole sport. You start to enjoy it again. Every day is not just about calorie deficit. Now you can actually go and learn some moves. You can actually work on some stuff. Very fun. My teammates do it right now. Austin Vanderford, 170-pounder, totally undefeated, calls Mike Kogan up at Bellator, says, I want to go 185. Kogan says, go ahead. So Austin is now undefeated at 185, but I talked to him. He's just enjoying life. His life is better because he's not going into practice in calorie deficit, worn down, drawn out, and then has to push for 2 hours. It's just one of these things that I think if Hooker does weigh what I think he weighs, I'd love to see him just go to 170. And I think he's a player right away. I think right now in a best case scenario, an absolute best case scenario, and best case even involves Dana doing you a favor. I mean, a best case scenario, he is 3 wins away from the discussion of a title fight at 155. The discussion. I think he's 1 win away at 170. There's just things that happen to guys when they change weight classes, and he would walk right. He's not going to lose his spot. His spot is as a co-main and a main event fighter. He is not going to lose that spot. I don't accept his retirement. I got a huge kick out of his retirement. I would like him to clarify if he was attempting to retire by throwing those gloves in, just purely for comic relief, because that is that's my favorite part of the whole show, is that Dan Hooker's throwing his gloves in, saying, I'm done. Dan Hooker's not done. We do not accept this. We don't accept it from Khabib. We might have to live with it. We don't accept it. We damn sure don't accept it from Dan Hooker. Why? Because he caught one punch? Come on, Dan. We don't care. As fans and viewers, we do not care, and we do not judge you that you took a punch. So what?